Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stu here from Spain Speaks with an update on the current situation here in Spain, day 253 of the current situation, and it's all about the mass vaccination plan that the Prime Minister announced the other day. More details will be announced on Tuesday, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that supported the channel through a small donation. You can see your names here. Thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that bought merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your ongoing support. Now, as I said, it's all about this mass vaccination plan that the Prime Minister announced the other day. As we can see here, the Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez foresees that a very substantial part of the Spanish population will be vaccinated in the first half of 2021. The President of the government, Pedro Sánchez, has announced that next Tuesday the Council of Ministers will approve the vaccination strategy against COVID-19, with the provision that a very substantial part of the Spanish population will be vaccinated with all the guarantees in the first semester of 2021. And the Health Minister Salvador Illa came out yesterday and said that very probably half of the Spanish population will be vaccinated. The Minister of Health considers it to be counterproductive that vaccination is mandatory. A day after Pedro Sánchez announced the mass vaccination plan for COVID-19 that would be launched during the first half of the year, the Minister of Health, Salvador Illa, has detailed that most likely half of the Spanish population will be vaccinated. Also, the minister is not in favour that the vaccination is obligatory. It is not convenient and it could even be counterproductive, he said in an interview on RAC1. In that regard, he pointed out that while legally they could force citizens to get vaccinated, the experts advise against it. The population accepts vaccines well. There is a very high level of awareness and a clear understanding that to end the coronavirus, it will be necessary to be vaccinated, he commented. So there we go, the government's mass vaccination scheme announced. More details about it will be announced on Tuesday, so we'll just have to wait until then to find out exactly what the plan is going to be. But as we can see there, the health minister saying that it won't be obligatory, and the government expecting around 50% of the population in Spain to be vaccinated by the middle of next year. Now, we've all seen the devastating effect that this pandemic has had on health systems around the world and also economies. However, a recent study suggests that the pandemic was 6 times greater than what official data says. A group of researchers from the Australian National University and the University of Melbourne have concluded that COVID-19 contagion levels were much higher across the globe than official data suggests. Their findings were published this week in the journal The Royal Society Open Science. The authors have based their study on data on deaths from COVID-19 from a total of 15 countries, which they have used to estimate the number of infections. Thus, they have concluded that between March and August, the infection rate was an average of 6.2 times higher than detected in the official records. So some interesting information coming to light there from that research done by 2 Australian universities. Now, we all know that Spain has an important long weekend coming up, the Constitution long weekend, and various autonomous communities around the country have said that they're going to keep their borders closed for that long weekend. And the Madrid community has also announced that it will close its borders for 10 days in early December. The Madrid region is going to close its borders during the December holiday week, as it did for the recent All Saints and Almudena Fiestas. December the 8th is a national holiday in Spain, while December the 7th is a holiday in all regions except Cantabria, Castilla-La Mancha, Catalonia, Valencia, Galicia, and the Basque Country. Under normal circumstances, this would be a time when many Spaniards take a holiday and travel, for example, to second residences in other parts of the country. So Madrid, they're deciding that it's going to close its borders for that long weekend. Not really sure if it is to keep people here in Madrid in and stop them from traveling around the country, or to stop people from other parts of the country coming to Madrid for that long weekend, which is also traditionally a very, very important aspect of that long weekend. Normally people from Madrid would flee the city and people from other parts of the country would flock to the capital, but this year, none of that. The Madrid community has also decided that its most famous flea market, the Rastro, will reopen again. We can see here that the Rastro is reopening today with maximum capacity and controls after 8 months of being closed. The Madrid Rastro returns after more than 8 months closed due to the pandemic, with half of the stalls, 500, and a maximum capacity of 2,702 people, which will be controlled by 150 agents and drones of the municipal police. The stalls must be separated by 1.5 meters, and the space dedicated to the market, 31,000 square meters, will be marked with fences and tape so that you can walk safely. The City Council of the capital has designed a geolocation tool for positions which can be found on the town hall's website. So there we go, the Rastro here in Madrid reopening with half the amount of stalls and a maximum capacity of 2,702 people. Now I don't know who comes up with these rules, but 2,702, surely they could have left it at 2,700. Now people in Andalusia are waiting today with bated breath as the junta will announce whether they will extend or tighten the restrictions in Andalusia. The junta and a board of experts are meeting today to study the options. The president of Andalusia, Juanma Moreno, has already advanced that the decisions may be unpopular, and Juan Marín has announced that we may continue this way for 15 more days. Now let's have a look at the health situation around the country by looking at a map of Spain and various autonomous communities. Starting here with the country as a whole, we can see that the risk level is extreme. The total amount of cases since the pandemic began. The accumulated incidence rate around the country is 419.48. We can see the total amount of deceased there. We can see deaths in the last 7 days, 1,341. Hospital pressure now, there are currently 7,963 COVID patients in hospitals around the country, and there are 3,054 COVID patients in ICUs, which is 31.02% of all ICUs in Spain. Castilla and Leon now, we can see that the risk level is also extreme. The total amount of cases, the accumulated incidence rate in that autonomous community over the last 14 days sits at 769.6. There have been 178 deaths in the last 7 days, and hospital pressure in that part of Spain, there are 1,539 COVID patients in hospitals, and there are 248 COVID patients in ICUs, which is 44.05% of ICUs in Castilla y Leon. Madrid now, we can see that the risk level is also extreme. The total amount of cases, the AI rate in the last 14 days, 285.52. Deaths in the last 7 days, 105. Hospital pressure, we can see that there are 2,152 patients with COVID in Madrid hospitals, and there are 383 patients in Madrid ICUs with COVID. Andalusia now, we can see that the risk level is also extreme. The total amount of cases, the accumulated incidence rate in that region, 507.21. Deaths in the last 7 days, 231. And there are 2,997 people hospitalized currently with COVID in Andalusia. And there are 567 COVID patients in ICUs, which is 31.29% of all ICUs in that autonomous community. And as I said before, Andalusia are going to decide today whether they lengthen the restrictions that are currently in place. Now, we all know that the pandemic is not the only crisis in Spain at the moment. There's also a humanitarian crisis or a migration crisis happening at the moment in the Canary Islands. We can see here that Spain has decided to impose the Lesbos model in the Canary Islands to prevent migrants from reaching Europe. The government's justification is clear, and they have reiterated it on several occasions. Not all migrants who are arriving in the Canary Islands should be considered in a situation of vulnerability. But in the archipelago, they are not buying that message, at least while those deportations are still frozen. The leader of the opposition in Spain, Pablo Casado, is blaming the Prime Minister for what he calls the pull effect in the migration crisis in the Canary Islands. The president of the Partido Popular, Pablo Casado, has blamed Pedro Sánchez for the pull effect in the migratory crisis that the Canary Islands are experiencing due to the massive arrival of migrants in recent weeks. In turn, the Transport Minister, José Luis Ábalos, has insisted from the archipelago the situation is temporary and no camp is going to be stabilised on the islands, while denying that transfers to the peninsula will take place. So there we go, the migrant crisis in the Canary Islands, a very hot topic at the moment. The Canary Islands government not very happy, let's say, with the way that the central government is handling the situation, and the opposition leader there, as we saw, blaming the government for what they call the pull effect, or encouraging more people to migrate to Spain, or encouraging through previous policies more people to migrate to Spain and Europe. So a hot topic at the moment, as I said. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from recent videos. First one here from Richard. Great video as ever. I can only echo what you were saying at the end about languages in schools. A neighbour of ours in Santa Pola came to live in our area with his young children, who were about 7 and 10 years old at the time. Their grades really suffered as they had to pick up subjects taught in Valencian. No one, not even the teachers, and none of the other kids spoke Valencian outside of the classroom. Madness. Yeah, Richard, thanks for the comment. Lots of talk in recent times about languages here in the country, lots of debate, especially with this new education law that was passed the other day. Lots of people worry that Castilian Spanish is going to disappear in some parts of the country. I don't think that's going to be the case, but some people, however, do think that that might be one of the possible problems of this new law. As we all know, there are various regions around the country that have their own languages, Valencia being one of those, the Balearic Islands, Catalonia, the Basque Country, and Galicia, I think are the main areas around the country that have their own languages. And of course, they do have instruction in schools in these languages. And it can be a bit of a problem for people that are going to those areas. You mentioned there that person that took his kids to a school in Valencia and they had trouble trying to adapt to that local language. So these are all things that you need to keep in mind if you are planning to move to one of those areas. Here in Madrid or the central part of the country, you don't have to worry about things like this, but it could be a bit of a problem in places like the one that you mentioned there in the Valencia-Alicante region. So keep that in mind if you are planning to come to Spain and live in one of the areas where another language is taught and you have kids, that subjects taught in these languages could affect their grades. One here from Winter Biker. Stuart, I'm just wondering if you have noticed any change to Spain which you think may become permanent. Just wondering if COVID disappeared tomorrow, would Spaniards be able to return to the way they lived before this pandemic started? We are wondering if it will be a different place than it was. Stay safe. You Winter, thanks for the comment and good question. To be honest, I haven't noticed a lot of change. Of course, that's partly due to the fact that I can't travel around the country much anymore. There's lots of places that are closed and I can't go into these areas and see what is happening. Obviously, the biggest changes to date have been in the tourist sector. The tourist sector absolutely smashed, of course, because people can't travel to the country freely and lots of people deciding that perhaps it's not a good time to take a holiday. So the tourist sector obviously is going to suffer the consequences of this pandemic for years to come. Remember that last year Spain had something like 86 million people visit the country, and I don't think they're going to get numbers like that anytime soon. The full impact of the pandemic is not really known yet. We're going to have to wait and see what the long-term effects are going to be to the economy. I've seen a few places close in recent times. I've mentioned a restaurant that I like to go to has closed, and I've also seen a few videos on YouTube of people walking around various cities in Spain showing lots of closed businesses. So obviously that's going to be one change, but I imagine that when the economy starts to recover, new businesses will take up those empty premises. And will the country be a different place? I'm sure that there will be long-lasting remnants of this pandemic. I don't know how long people are going to have to wear masks for. I don't know how long these restrictions are going to be in place for. I don't know whether the vaccine is going to be successful next year in getting everything back to normal. Those are things we're just going to have to wait and see. But probably around 2022, I'm optimistic that that's going to be the date when we start to see some type of normality return to our lives, or at least I hope that is the date. One here from Dai. My wife's name is Immaculada Inma and her mother's name is Concepcion, LOL. Yeah, Dai, thanks for the comment. I mentioned the other day the words Immaculate Conception. Of course, we have that public holiday coming up very shortly, the day of Immaculate Conception. And those two names that you mentioned there, Concepcion and Immaculada or Inma, are very common names here in the country. But don't get me started on female Spanish names because they can be very confusing. There's a lot of diminutives for female names in this country that can be quite confusing, at least for me. Names like Maite, for example, Lola, Concha, Charo, Melu, very confusing names. And sometimes it can be a bit confusing to work out exactly what a person's real name is. So for example, Lola, her name would be Dolores, Charo would be Rosario, and Concha would be Concepcion. So some names here, at least for me, can be a little bit confusing. One here from Ben. There is so much work that goes into making videos beyond recording the actual thing. You are doing amazingly and it is very much appreciated. Yeah, Ben, thanks for the comment. You're right, there is a lot of work that goes into making a video like the ones that I do here every day. Not only the preparation, but the recording and also the editing, which can be a real nightmare sometimes. I never thought before I started doing these videos that there was a lot of work involved, but boy was I wrong. There are so many things that you have to take into account. For example, the lights, the camera, the sound, and you have to bring them all together to try to get a decent quality video, and that's what I try to do every day. So a big thanks to you, Ben, for showing your appreciation, and everybody else who has left a comment showing their appreciation of these videos. I'm grateful. One here from Kay Jensen. Stuart, you have done really well. 40K is a lot. congrats. Even if I don't always agree with you, I almost always watch you for info. And yes, your titles are quite honest and not clickbaits like a lot of others. As long as your reports, also on numbers, will be balanced and unbiased, I will keep watching you long after this pandemic is over. Spain will always be attractive for a lot of people. UK, thanks for the comments. I don't expect everybody to agree with everything that I say. These videos are fairly straightforward, but the other videos that I do where I give my opinion about things, I don't expect everybody to agree with every single opinion that I have. That's part of the channel as well, to get debate happening. I like to see opposing views. I like to read comments from people that have different ideas to the ones that I have, as long as they're not too extreme and too difficult to believe. I talk about things based on my knowledge and experience, and obviously people are going to have different points of view about different things, especially when it comes to living in a country like this. And you're right about that last point that you made there. Spain will continue to be an attractive country for many, many people in years to come. And I don't think that this pandemic is going to affect things for too long, as this country has been around for a long, long time. And I think it is going to continue to be around for a long, long time. One here from James. Hi Stu, yes, we would both like you to do more reports around Spain as we tour the country extensively when we drive over from the UK. We did the North Coast a few years ago and found a lovely place called Po. Had a great beach and a very good restaurant. Yeah, James, thanks for the comment and glad to see that you enjoy the north of Spain. I have also been to that place there. Bit of a strange name in English, P-O-O. Obviously, we all know what that is, but I think in Spanish they pronounce it Po. But if anybody knows differently, please let us know in the comment section below. Bit strange, as I said, to see that place, to see P-O-O written on signs. Welcome to P-O-O, but it is a very nice place in the north of Spain in Asturias. I think it's very close to a town called Llanes, which is also an attractive destination, and also close to a place called Riba de Sella, which is also a very attractive place to visit. I wouldn't recommend going there in the summer months because it can get quite crowded, but if you've got some spare time and you can travel around that part of the world in the off season, I highly recommend Asturias as a place to visit. And finally, one here from Aaron. Excellent work, mate. Thanks for the updates. I bet you are missing WA at the moment. Yeah, Aaron, thanks for the comment. I am missing WA a bit at the moment, especially the freedom that they have in that part of the world. I see my sister's Instagram posts and her friends. They're out and about doing things as they would normally do. People are celebrating birthdays, people are having parties, people are attending sporting events. Basically, it's the exact opposite of what's happening in this country at the moment. But hey, well done WA, you managed to keep the virus out and people there are able to live their lives normally. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.